Is there a dot supposed to come up? Yes. Right. You were supposed to say something, Clark, prior to that going live, weren't you?
Yes, just if I could remind everyone to mute their microphones and activate their cameras, that would be great. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the remote meeting of the Inner South Community Committee. My name is Angela Gabriel, and I will be chairing today's meeting. The South Leeds Community Committee covers Beeston and Holbeck, Hunslet and Riverside, and the Middleton Park ward, and is a committee where ward councillors have an opportunity to discuss and make decisions about services and priorities for the local community, and also consider funding applications regarding community projects and youth activities. I would like to start the meeting by confirming that today's meeting committee meets the requirements of the council's consultation, even though members are in a remote attendance, and that members of the public are able to view the meeting via our live webcam. As we are beginning the meeting, could I ask the nominees to turn their microphones to mute unless you are invited to speak? This will avoid disturbing the background noise. Should a member wish to speak or ask a question, they can either raise their hands physically or use the little icon in the reactions. The appointment of Vice Chair, is that you, Harriet?
Sorry, Chair. If just bear with me one moment. In order to avoid any disruption to the meeting, Chair, I think it's just for you to propose a Vice Chair at this point.
Okay, just in case by any chance I get cut off at the pass by the computer, I would like to nominate Andrew Scopes to be the chair if I go offline. Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah, I'll second it, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Right. I would like to invite members and officers to introduce themselves and mute your microphone once your introduction has been done. I will start with councillors. Go Hart, you're first.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Councillor Gower Almas, and I'm one of the 3 councillors from Beeston and Holbeck. Thank you.
Andrew, you're next.
Hi, I'm Councillor Andrew Scopes. I represent Beeston Holbeck Ward.
Elizabeth.
Hello, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Nash, and I represent Hunslet and Riverside.
Paul Ray.
Councillor Paul Ray, also representing Hunslet and Riverside Ward.
Judith Blake.
Good afternoon, everyone. Judith Blake, representing Middleton Park Ward.
Kim.
Good afternoon, everyone. Councillor Kim Groves, representing Belle Island Middleton Ward.
Okay, Paul Truswell.
Paul Truswell, councillor for Middleton and Belle Isle.
Okay, now I'll do officers. Is Liz Jarman here? No. Lynn, are you here?
I'm here, Chair. Yeah, Lynn Banbury, Localities Officer for the Communities team, covering the Inner South Community Committee.
And then I've got Harriet.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, Harriet Spade, Governance Officer.
And I can see I've got James Nundy.
Hello, everybody. James Nundy from the Council's Communities team, and I cover the Beeston Holbeck Ward.
And then I can see I've got Finn.
Good afternoon, Chair. I'm Finn Gamble, Team Leader for Forward Planning in Transport Strategy.
I nearly didn't recognise you, Finn. You've been dyeing your hair, dear.
That I have, Chair.
Just to show that I pay attention.
Yeah.
And last but not least, I've got Paul.
Hi, I'm Paul Foster, Transport Strategy Manager, to come to present with Finn.
Okay, so we start the agenda. Sorry? Has somebody got the background on? No, that's it. So if we start the meeting with item 1 is appeals against refusal.
There are no appeals today, Chair.
2, exception.
There are no exempt information today, Chair.
Late items.
At the request of yourself, Chair, a late item of business has been circulated and published. This is item number 13, which is the National Census 2021. And in addition to this, some supplementary information has also been circulated in relation to item 8, the finance report, and this is an additional wellbeing application for the committee's consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any declarations of interest? No. And apologies, we've got Mohammed Iqbal.
Yes, that's correct, Chair.
Good. If we go to the minutes of the last meeting that are on page 7, has anybody got any matters arising or corrections they want to bring to our attention? Andrew, was that your hand up?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to a matter arising, if that's okay. So I know we commented briefly on bowling greens and how they weren't really this topic here, but I just wanted to flag that the proposal's been changed, and so the bowling greens aren't being closed, and I just thought that was worth making the point for the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Kim, I've got your hand up.
Yeah, just on the domestic violence, that actually on the last paragraph that we said we'd get some clarity how victims can find support and what is the front door for services. I know that in the rail industry, they're allowed to have free travel, but it's not the same with a bus or where local support systems are in place. So just really that we can follow that up and make sure that members have got that.
Okay. Is that okay, Lynn? Did we talk about that in our subgroup? You know, in the environmental subgroup, domestic violence gave the report. Well, can we just pick up?
I think a lot. Sorry, Chair. I think we picked up quite a lot of points. What I'll do is I will circulate the action notes to everybody, to all members, so we can see. I do think that was picked up, though.
Yeah,
I'll make a note, Chair.
Yeah, but it'd be nice if it could go in the minutes of the next meeting so that it gets widely circulated to everybody. Is that okay, everyone? Good. Anybody else got matters arising in the minutes? No? Good. We then got into the open forum. Have we had anybody put any questions into the open forum this time, Harriet? Lynn?
There have been no submissions this time around, Chair.
Good. Okay. Well, I think we need to try harder as a group to try and get people to ask us questions. I think we've just got to, I think it's new to everybody and we've just got to keep trying. Not that I don't mind having any questions, but it is always nice to have a bit of a question that can put us in the awkward position that we like to be in as councillors. Okay. So after that, we go then on to the Finance Committee, which is found on page 13. Lynn, are you going to go through this, please?
I'm unmuted now, sorry, Chair. So if everybody could turn to agenda item 8, the Inner South Community Committee Finance Report. This report provides the committee with an update on the budget position for the Wellbeing Fund, Youth Activity Fund, capital budget, as well as the Community Infrastructure Levy budget for 2020. If you could please turn to point 16. Wellbeing budget position 2021. Total revenue budget approved by the Exec Board for 2021 was 102,580. Table 1 shows a carry forward figure of 139,685, which includes underspends from projects completed in 1920. 109,760 represents well-being allocated to projects in 2019-20 and not yet completed. Therefore, the total revenue funding available to the committee for 2021 is 292,506. The committee is asked to note that there is currently a remaining balance of £26,049. Ward balances are as follows: Eastern and Holbeck 3,662, Hunslet and Riverside 5,835, and Middleton Park 16,551. Turning over the page, projects are listed in the table.
Excuse me, Chair and Lynn, I'm finding difficulty hearing. I don't know if you're speaking into your microphone or what, but I've put my earphones on to try and make it better, but it isn't.
Is anybody else having?
No, I can hear. Can anybody else hear her? Yeah.
I'll turn my mic up.
Do you want to turn your volume? Elizabeth, do you want to turn your volume up on your computer?
Try.
Bottom, there should be like a loudspeaker.
Right, okay, thank you.
So just to recap, we're just looking at the revenue projects in table 1. Do members have any questions about these at all? If not, I'll progress on. So moving on.
I do have a question. You said questions on table 1. On page 17, the Monday evening vocational project, the Hunslet Club, did this go ahead?
It's been cancelled.
Right, so that sum will be carried forward till next year.
What will happen is that one will be going back into the revenue budget, and they'll be reapplying in the next financial year.
Fine.
So I have emailed out to sort of all projects that are currently postponed, just to see if they want to reapply next year or whether they want to roll it over. So I will be able to provide a table to members just actually when I know that, but I'm still getting emails back in about what they'd like to do, most of them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think it was taken at a senior level that we would have to draw a line rather than keep rolling the budget over and over again, just so we had a clean break and said, are you able to continue your programme? And if you would you like to complete a new form? Just so that by the end of the financial year, we had a budget that we could present.
Right.
Thank you, Chair. So moving on to point 20, new applications for wellbeing funding. Would you like to go through those, Chair, or would you like me to?
I'll go through them and then I can keep an eye on what folks say. So project 20 is a Middleton Rugby Engagement Project. Are all Middleton members okay with that? Any comments? No? And that'll start as soon as they can. Good. Item 21 is the Midnight Summer Night Showcase in Middleton Park, and they're due to start in July. Are you okay with that funding? Yep.
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. And then project 22 is Beeston in Bloom is painting the utility boxes on Beeston Road. Is everybody okay with that? Andrew, yep, good. I am, although I have to declare an interest as chair. Then we go to designated decisions. Do you want to go through them, Lynn?
Yes, I will.
I was going to say, do people just want to read them, and then if there's any questions, rather than go through a list of 20 projects?
Sorry, Chair, can I just...
Chair, I just have to declare that I'm on the Unscrewed Rugby Foundation.
Thank you. Lynn, you were saying something?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Now, I was just going to remind you, we have a supplementary item, which is an additional wellbeing application, which is feedback letter to New Forest Village residents, £1,069.46 from revenue from Middleton Park.
Yep. Are you okay with that, councillors?
Yeah.
Good. Thank you for reminding me, Lynn. Put that over there. Good. So number 24 is declined projects. And you will notice that one was declined for the healthy holidays. It came in the week before Christmas and they wanted to give people a £10 voucher. And when I consulted with Deborah Cooper, she said that it wasn't a suitable thing to be giving people money rather than Christmas presents. So we declined it. And with only a week before Christmas, we didn't have enough time to turn it round anyway. So that's the reason that that was declined. Okay, back to you, Lynn, number 25.
So moving on to paragraph 25. Onwards, we have monitoring info for the Bile Bean sign restoration, Middleton Park Fish Pond boat, and Holbeck street name refurbs. So turning over the page, paragraph 26, Balbeen sign restoration, Hunslet Car Residents Association. The iconic wall advertisement, the Balbeen sign has been restored to its original condition. Positive responses have been received from the community via Facebook and via a South Leeds Life newspaper article. Unfortunately, they've not been able to do anything, obviously, in person yet, but they have things planned, I'm sure, for as soon as they can get back to doing activities and events, hopefully with a lovely backdrop behind them.
Yeah,
So
I think
I
have to think it looks fabulous, although the ideal tonic laxative is not the most endearing sign that you want to see.
Can I say, Chair, that I think it cheers everyone up because the background is bright yellow, and to see that as a laxative, it just makes you smile.
And that's what we want in these times, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed.
Sorry, Lynn, carry on, love, sorry.
That's fine. I've not seen it yet, so I haven't been past the list, so I'm looking forward to it. So paragraph 27, Middleton Park Fish Pond Boat and other maintenance items. That was parks and countryside for the Middleton Park ward.
Can I just say I cannot wait to see the press. I can't wait to see the press release for that. I wonder which one of the three councillors. Do you think it should be the Baroness that gets in?
It's going to be the launch of the Middleton Park Navy.
Sorry, I'm being frivolous. Carry on.
No, that's fine. Thank you, Chair. So this is to help manage the Middleton Park for wildlife anglers, visitors, and allowing park staff to access hard to reach areas of the fish pond, removing snap fishing line, litter, and undertaking vegetation management works. So moving on then to the third project monitoring received. Paragraph 28, Holbeck Street Name Plate Refurbishment Scheme, and this is in the Holbeck Priority Neighbourhood. And obviously there's a lot of historical importance in Holbeck, so we wanted to preserve the original cast iron nameplate where possible. So it's now been successfully carried out with 100 of the cast iron street nameplates restored to original condition. This lovely photo of a before and an after, which I was quite pleased with, so which just illustrates that.
Sorry, Elizabeth's got a hand up.
Sorry, Councillor Nash.
Take your microphone off, Liz.
Oh, you're on mute.
I'm very keen on this. In fact, it was our ward that started it. All the signs in Hunslet have been restored, and indeed the city centre, that's where I first started it. I'm very keen because this is part of Leeds' heritage. All these signs were originally handmade. There were troughs of sand and the letters were pressed into the sand, and then molten metal was poured over it. They were all handmade, and I'm very pleased that you're doing that, and I hope it spreads throughout the city.
Good, yes. I'm sure we'll be looking at other places to do. Thank you, Liz. Right, Lynn, carry on, dear.
Thank you, Chair. If we move on to point 29, Youth Activities Fund position. So the total available for spend in the Inner South Community Committee 2021, including carried forward from the previous year, is 45,059. The committee is asked to note that so far a total of 44,957 has been allocated to projects, as listed in Table 2. There is a remaining balance of £105 in the Youth Activity Fund for Hunslet and Riverside Ward. A full breakdown of the projects can be seen below. And there are anticipated underspends from projects that haven't been able to. So as that's confirmed, we will update the report. So members have any questions about any of the projects there, I'm happy to answer it or take that away.
I've got Elizabeth's hand up.
Yes, Councillor Nash.
Yeah, again, on page 26, about 2/3 of the way down, we've got the Hunslet Moor Activity Day. I'm not sure this took place during the year.
No.
So is that going to be rolled over or a reapplication?
I think, I'm just trying to think, Councillor Nash, I don't think that the activity day went ahead.
No.
There were some activity packs that members agreed a variation for. I think it was £360 to come out of this fund. The rest is going to, and they'll reapply next year.
So they're going to reapply next year, Elizabeth.
Oh, God, sorry, I just missed the final half sentence which Lynn said. Your voice does keep breaking up, even though I've switched the volume up.
No, she has a very bad internet connection, does
Right.
Lynn.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Right.
So moving on to 33, Small Grants Budget 2021. The Community Committee on the 1st of May 2020, ward members recommended a small grants budget of 6,500. There is currently a remaining balance of 5,577 detailed in Table 3. Beeston and Holbeck have a balance of 2,834. Hunslet and Riverside have 1,333 and Middleton Park 1,410. Moving on to paragraph 35, Community Skips Budget 2021. Community budget of 1,500 was approved. There is currently a total remaining balance of 1,192, which is Beeston and Holbeck 692 and Middleton Park 500. Capital Budget 2021, paragraph 36. The Inner South Community Committee has a capital budget of 26,013 available to spend. Members are asked to note the capital allocation broken down by ward and summarised in Table 5. So just to confirm, the balance by ward, Beeston and Holbeck 8,643, Hunslet and Riverside 10,036, Middleton Park 7,334. Okay. Infrastructure Levy Budget 2021, paragraph 37. The committee is asked to note that there is currently a total of 82,714 available to spend in the Inner South SIL budget. Members will note that this is an increase for Beeston and Holbeck and Hunslet and Riverside because we've had recent SIL injections.
Hooray! Sorry.
The breakdown is now as follows. Beeston and Holbeck 33,323, Hunslet and Riverside 32,400 and Middleton Park 16,991.
Okay, Andrew's got his hand up.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to flag that the three of us Beeston Holbeck councillors, as you know, are looking at piggybacking off the work they're doing on the Ellen Road cycle scheme and putting electricity cables down at that point to see if we can get lighting in the Mugger, the multi-use games area in Holbeck, on Holbeck Moor. We're just looking at a proposal from the lighting department, just checking out I think they call it the lux, so how bright the lights are and the coverage to make sure there's no dark corners in the Mugger. And then the final thing we're looking at is whether as they turn off, they can dim rather than going straight off. So you're not suddenly left in the dark in the evening when they turn off. But that's a really positive and fortuitous timing of the SIL injections. Hopefully that will be able to go in the next few months.
Good. Thank you for that, Andrew. Anybody else? No, off you go, Lynn. So you've done Table 6.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So moving on to paragraph 40. Table 7 below provides the committee with a position statement on the Inner South Wellbeing COVID-19 projects, which are funded by the committee. And these aren't the government funded 10K. These are the discretionary fund that came out of Wellbeing. So the committee is asked to note the contents of the table and the remaining balances. Since the report was printed, we do have updated balances now. So the total balance remaining is 3,007. So that's Beeston and Holbeck have fully allocated theirs, so their balance is 0. Hunslet and Riverside is now 2,408, and Middleton Park is 98. Moving on now to point 41.
Elizabeth's just put a hand up. Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry, Councillor Nash.
Do we lose this money if it's not spent by the end of the year?
No, this is the pot of
money back.
Yeah, I know what the fund is, but does it carry over to next year, next financial year? Good, thank you.
It's the next table, Elizabeth, that is the government funded one, that if we don't spend it goes back. Under item table 10.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I wasn't aware we had two.
Sorry, Chair. A bit thick here. In the Middleton Park comment, it says 598, not 98.
Have you spent some more since the last meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
£500 has gone towards Coburn School to the laptops because you
That's
didn't
fine.
have any left in your government fund. Yeah.
They did have that in the minutes because otherwise it looks a bit strange.
Okay, thank you. Are you all right with the answer, Elizabeth, as well?
Yeah. Reasonably so. But so that money, that if it's not spent, the one in table 8, yes, that's the one that stops at the end of this month.
Yes. And if you don't spend it, the government will take it back.
I'm just wondering how the schools, the high schools, will be able to ensure that all the children wear face masks. Buying them, is that an impediment?
Not that I've heard. I mean, the schools do know of this fund. So, because obviously Coburn's has applied for laptops, but South Leeds Academy haven't, South Leeds John Charles hasn't applied for any. I think because did you not put a notice out, Paul Ray, saying people could bid for money but only £500?
Yeah, because we were to try and max out. So I think what we've decided to do is give it till the 15th. And then if the grants haven't been chewed up by the 15th, to then look to distribute the remainder to priority projects in the ward. So we're trying to give as many groups as possible a chance to apply for something, rather than, as reasonably happens, some of the more organised groups get in there first, get the lion's share. We can distribute that quite quickly afterwards if we don't take up all the money by the 15th.
Okay, good. I like a plan. Okay, off you go, Lynn. Item table 8.
Thank you, Chair. And can I just clarify before I forget? Coburn John Charles did apply for some within the Middleton Park Schools laptop project. So they have received laptops and dongles.
Good.
Okay, so just to recap, the table is the community position statement on the government funded COVID projects, which we've just covered. We know we need to spend it by the end of March. I think we're moving towards that. Amended balances. So we have had a couple more projects. We're getting little projects in quite regularly for this still. So amended balances, taking these recent grants into account. The balances of Beeston and Holbeck, 5,865. Hunslet and Riverside, 5,331.
Could you repeat, Lynn, sorry, Lynn, could you repeat that one for Hunslet and Riverside, please?
Yes, sorry. Hunslet, 5,331, although it does in the balance at the bottom that it was 6,331. But we have spent some additional money now just for that to be minuted. Middleton Park, their balance, it says 2,260. That is now 0 from the last project. Good. And Beeston and Holbeck, 5,875, whilst it says 7,260 at the bottom of the
Thank you, Lynn.
Thanks. So moving on now to final table, table 9. This details projects that might get started or are paused due to COVID-19. And there's no wish to make comments in addition to noting the contents. So just to touch again on this, we spoke earlier on that it was agreed at the Chairs Forum to suggest decommitting and sitting down any postponed projects and inviting them to reapply in 2021. I emailed councillors last week for their comments. Any paused projects that actually have started, they have the option then to roll over the funding. But any projects that actually haven't started at all, unless there's a reason why not, we would be looking at putting that money back into the wards pots and then reallocating it next year when they apply again, just so then we would have some more money moving forward.
Okay, everybody all right with that? I can see your hand up, Liz. Is that from last time? Paul Ray, your hand's up this time.
Yeah, it's just for the point of clarity. Obviously, with the funds potentially going back into the pot, and obviously we'll get another cash injection in line as we normally do. I suppose my only concern is bearing in mind the tight financial position of the council. Is that money guaranteed not to be redistributed anywhere? That was so that it's in perpetuity. It's effectively okay. That's fine. That's just what I want to check. Thank you, Chair.
The only money that can get pulled back is the government money. All the council money are saying because they could. It's not their fault that they couldn't do the project. So the money will go back into our pot to get redistributed again at our say so. Good. Okay. Right, Lynn,
Yeah,
anything else?
Yeah, can I just also stress on the last table about the money going back into the pot? That will go back into the wards pot. It won't just go back into Inner South. The ward that had actually committed that money, that will go back into that fund again, their revenue fund or their youth activities fund.
Yeah, good.
So if I have no more questions on that, so I just ask if point 49 members are asked to note and consider where appropriate points A to L below.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Lynn. Good. I'm seeing nodding faces, so I shall say good. Right, thank you for that, Lynn. I know it's difficult with your Wi-Fi connection, but well done. Right, moving on now to item 9, which is the update report. So I will, as usual, just ask the representatives or the chairs of the subgroups just to give us a little feedback. Obviously, we will have read all the main report that you've got to say, but if there's anything you need to add, please do so. So I'll start with Andrew Scopes.
Thank you, Chair. Just finding my unmute button. Yeah, so we had a very useful meeting a couple of weeks ago, talked about looked after children and NEET, so not in education, employment or training, and what we can do as a council and what is being done by schools to help those two groups. I think there's and I can't stress this enough actually, there's a real challenge with for young people going back to school, and there's this really interesting sort of paradox where I think some children are really keen to get back to school because they want to see people, and other people, I guess, anxiety is affecting them the other way and they're quite nervous about leaving the house. So you've become quite accustomed to being online, and in many ways it's quite a safe environment if you're in a school where all your lessons are online and you can opt in, opt out as you see fit. So I think there's a challenge both ways for children, and I'm aware a number of schools are going to do a lot of work around the first few days back in school, just building children back into it. So Beeson Prime, for example, is going to do some restorative circle work on the first morning about person and group, and many schools across the clusters in the inner south will be doing that sort of thing just to sort of re-land children back in. But I think from the council's perspective, the big thing is I think there will be a lot of new disclosures. I think the professionals were telling us about because of the period of being at home. And then the only other thing I'd just like to flag, because it can't be said enough, that schools have been busting their gut throughout this lockdown. They've been working hard, so teachers have been in school teaching key worker children and vulnerable children and looked after children. So that's a big job. They've also been doing online lessons, they've been marking work, they've been trying to assess how well children are doing via online work. And now they're also planning to relaunch school, having everyone back in, lateral flow testing, catch up curriculums again, or the recovery curriculum, which some schools are calling it now. And so that is on top of everything else. So I don't think we can stress enough how much is being done, but still, I think we all recognise there's this huge amount that needs to be done to safeguard our children as they go back to school. Happy to take any questions.
Anybody got any questions for Andrew? Other than Kim?
I don't know if it's a question. I think it's more of a comment, Andrew, in terms, I think you're right about the anxiety. I don't think it's just young people. I think it's adults as well, especially if you've been working from home since March, like many people. I suppose in terms of we can actually carry our money forward. And if we're in a position in July, August and September where we can open up and young people can engage in more activities, I wonder if we should do a piece of work around what those activities might look like and how we can spend our money to help young people build back the confidence and build back that type of resilience, and getting back to even learning is going to be a challenge for them in that environment. And I've heard many great examples, through our ward where young people have taken to baking for a hobby and have been selling, things like their cakes or learning about engineering while they've been at home. So I think there's a lot of things that actually, out of that, the young people are thinking about the careers and being entrepreneurs. And I did welcome the government's apprenticeship announcement today in the budget. But one of my questions, and I think it's something we've got a challenge on, is in construction and speaking to many employers, is they cannot get people to work in the industry because the entry level to get into college to build, they've got to have that English and maths higher standard. Now, when we built places like the Civic Hall and the Town Hall, probably they didn't have that. But actually look at those buildings that were produced, and it's something that we're going to overcome because a lot of young people are being left behind in our wards. They haven't got the academic, but they've got the skills. For instance, young people in our ward once bin wheels went missing, and suddenly, go-karts arrived on the streets. You could say that's not a really good thing and taking them off, but the thought that they can make something, an engineer, means that they've got some type of skill. So I just don't know how we overcome that, whether it's through workshops or we do something really different. But the entry level for young people for college in our wards and to go into these industries, it's something as nationally I think as we've got to address.
Okay, thanks for that, Kim. Judith?
I'm not sure about the others of you that were there, but I thought that the last children's subcommittee was one of the most extraordinary meetings that we've had. The commitment from the partners across the whole of Inner South was absolutely unbelievable, and really highlighting all of the issues that Andrew has raised. What we do know is that there is a significant amount of money coming from government for the catch-up programme. I'm involved through my national role and trying to get government to recognise that it's not just about classes from the curriculum, because I don't think a lot of young people will just engage in that. It's about the bigger picture. It's about all of the activities that we've done over many years, and I think we've got an incredible amount to bring to the table, and we need to start the conversations now about the sort of programs that we can assist with that'll address all of the issues about confidence, about addressing mental health concerns, really making sure that young people really feel by the autumn that they can fully engage and come back with massive confidence that although they might have missed some, that they've got the ability to catch up. And it's so complicated, isn't it, in terms of what needs to be done, but actually following the basic rules of what will engage with young people. And it's really good quality activities. Doesn't matter whether it's sport arts related or whatever. Food is a big one, as we know. And then the signposting services that can pick up the ones that need the additional support. I think we've got a huge amount of experience to build on, and we've got to make it really abundantly clear to all of our schools that we're here to help, and we are the glue that can bring everything together and really support the work that needs to be done.
Thank you for that, Judith. Kim, is your hand up from before, or you wanted a follow-up question? Unmute yourself, love.
It's an old hand, sorry. I'll take it.
Fair enough, right.
Can I just come back? Is that all right?
Oh, Andrew, yes.
Thank you. Thanks for those two comments. I think they're absolutely valid. And the confidence piece is absolutely right as well. And it's interesting, it's one of the key points the clusters brought. And again, that demonstrates the value of the clusters to the schools and then working together to make sure they do that. We are trying to do a little bit of consultation with young people. Obviously, we couldn't do the youth summit this year. We were going to try and do something online, but when the schools went into lockdown, we didn't feel like it's fair on them to try and get them to do an online thing somewhere else. And so there is going to be a consultation, but I think the point about confidence stuff, I'll take that away and work with Lynn on whether we can get some advice to the community committee in terms of what activities would be particularly good for that. And I also recognise the point that it is adults, it's even counsellors. So I've talked to some counsellors who are desperate to get on the door and doorstep and knock, and others who are a little bit nervous about it because they haven't done it, and that affects everyone, even outgoing people. So I think that's absolutely right. Thank you.
I know it isn't much, Andrew, but I was going to suggest as a community committee, if we wrote to all the schools in our area to thank the teachers and the head teachers for all the work that they've done. I know it's not much, but at least it does show that we do know they're hardworking and we do appreciate what they're doing. Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that action away, and I'll work with Lynn to make sure that happens.
Thank you, Andrew. Good. Okay. Any other questions for Andrew? No. So the next one is environmental and the community safety subgroup. Well, as Mohammed isn't here, he gave us a good report last time about what he does in his role as the West Yorkshire Police Board. And actually, the environmental subgroup is really taking off now because every councillor is now included. And I think we're all getting a better service and connection with all our partners and officers in the council. I hope people agree with that. And I think things are moving on nicely. And our next meeting will be on the 18th of May. And if you've got any items for the agenda, please let me know. Any questions, anybody? The next...
If that's okay, Chair.
Sorry, yes, Paul.
Just a comment. I think there's I missed last meeting, unfortunately, because of a clash, but I think there's a real opportunity with the change in how the directorates are working post-May in terms of cleaner neighbourhoods and housing leads and communities coming together more to have a real good assessment and maybe something on the agenda about how we actually manage some of the housing leads estates in a much more proactive manner than I think has been. Because I know there's been some quite successful work in Middleton Park ward, which I know we're wanting to replicate in Huntsville and Riverside ward. So it might be something we want to ask at that next subgroup about actually what their ambitions are when they come together as a joint team about how they manage some of the issues in terms of the general maintenance of the housing leads estates.
Yep. Kim, I've got your hand up.
Yeah, just to agree with Councillor Ray, really, but also to add in that it's how we capture the work that's going on in the South Weeds scoping work, and from the work from that board that myself, Andrew, and Councillor Ray, Councillor Scopes and Councillor Ray sit on. There's been a lot of environmental improvements, and obviously Councillor Nash has driven the solar lighting that both Middleton Park ward councillors and Hunslet councillors have contributed to. So basically, how do we capture all that work that's going on? And make sure that it's minuted in the community committee so people can see the extent of that work that we're doing.
Okay, so I'm not sure what board that is that you're on.
So it's the South Weeds Scoping Board for cycling and walking from the centre out to all 3 wards.
Okay, so if we ask Lynn to sort of tie that up together, even if we got the minutes of that meeting for us all to see, I think that's a good idea. I can see Andrew's hand up now.
Thanks, Chair. Just on page 50, paragraph 57.
Where are you? Paragraph
57 on page 50.
We're not up to that yet, Andrew.
We're not up to that.
Look. No, we're only on 36.
Sorry.
Go make a cup of tea and come back.
Yes, Chair.
Yeah. So we're on universal credits, is where we're up to next. We're on item 11, employment and skills update, which is a written report. So I presume you've all read that. Quite a lot in there, although. I'm just trying to find out where the next one starts, which should be health. Oh, health is here. On page 39, proposed health and wellbeing subgroup, which is my understanding that Paul, Trustwell and Gohar are forming a subgroup. Have you met yet as a subgroup?
We have, Chair. We've had one or two exploratory meetings. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of stuff in this section of the report. The officers have thrown everything, including the kitchen sink, into it. But just to pick up one or two things, yes, we have started to meet together. And Gohar and I thought it was a good idea for us to kind of work together. Public health aren't able to give a great deal of support in terms of officer time, and there's been hardly any adult social care input into this community committee for some years. So we're working together. Our starting point is, what are those services doing to address the identified inequalities in Inner South? And obviously those have been exacerbated by the pandemic and continue to be so. We've also been very active in the local care partnership, which has taken quite a lot of time to build up momentum, simply because initially it was focusing on COVID-related issues. It's now branching out and identifying priorities. And one of the main priorities is one that we discussed some time ago in this community committee, and that's mental health. We've still got to set up we've still got to identify what areas we need to concentrate on as an LCP. And part of that exercise is looking at what is already there and where the gaps are and where we might concentrate the collective resources of the LCP on that. The LCP also has one-off meetings to address particular challenges. And there's one today about the vaccine rollout and uptake of vaccine and the challenges and how we might address those. And on the subject of COVID, there have been two multi-agency groups set up, one in Beeston and Holbeck, because it did at one stage, I think, have the highest rate of infection in the city, and one in Middleton Park that now has the highest rate of infection in the city, apart from Wetherby. And the Wetherby figures, I think, are down to an outbreak in two prisons that are located within that ward. The report was submitted by the officer, I think, about 7 weeks ago, so bits of it are out of date. For example, the vaccination programme has now reached the over 60s. And I think it's moving ahead. And I think the lesson is, without wanting to be too political about it, is that the rollout is really working in places like Leeds because it's being managed by the public sector locally rather than top-down national private sector contracts that have failed in so many areas. One other point I will make before I stop talking is that I think it's on page 42. There's reference to the fact that Hamara continuing in their role as a community care hub, I think COVID hub for Middleton Park. The officers were very remiss not to mention Involve and Slung Low, who are proving to be equally effective in a massive way in the particular wards that they serve. So I just thought that was a bit of a shortcoming in the report that needed to be amended and needed to be rectified. Clearly there's a lot in here, and if members have got any questions, then Gohar or I will strive to answer them, but I suspect we might need to refer them to officers. Yeah.
Okay, Gohar, did you want to add anything to that report?
Yeah, I think Paul covered it really well. Thank you, Chair. The only thing I'd like to add is there's a lot of meetings going on with the LCP and various other partners and what have you very regularly, and Councillor Trustwell and myself are investing quite a lot of time in these meetings, trying to make it more and more meaningful. So hopefully within the next 3 months or so, when we come back, we will have a lot to basically, report back in terms of what we've been directly involved in. So even though there's a lot there on paper in terms of the report, which is at least 6 or 7 weeks old, but there's still a lot of work that is going on in the pipeline. And I also would like to assure one more thing as well. There's so much work going on around the outreach work as well that's going on, sort of engaging with the BAME communities and various other communities who perhaps are not as, if you like, as forward-coming in terms of vaccination and so on. We had a meeting this morning regarding that. So hopefully, the figures will kind of balance in terms of various communities and so on, because, obviously representing some deprived areas, and regardless of what the communities are there, deprivation is a major issue. And wherever there's deprivation, there has been issues in terms of vaccination, with people having myths and misconceptions and all the rest of it. So I think all of us need to battle together with those myths and misconceptions around vaccination, because if people are not vaccinated, every year in this country alone, more than 2 million people pre-COVID were vaccinated for various things. So what I mean is vaccination is saving lives in the world, and all of us, I think we need to promote vaccination of people wherever possible. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Gohar. So I've got Elizabeth with the hands up, then Kim, and then Paul Ray. So Elizabeth first.
I didn't realise I was first, actually.
No,
yeah.
Sorry, I can only see them on my board as they come up.
All right. Well, I am rather concerned that the rollout nationally, we heard on the news, seemed the daily rate of vaccination appears to have gone down from vaccinating nearly 500,000 a day. It's now down to almost half that. And firstly, I wondered, did that apply to Leeds? And secondly, I was a bit concerned. I have emailed Victoria Eaton today, because I was concerned about her reply to me at the group meeting that Elland Road was not working to full capacity, and that the spare vaccines were put in the fridge, back in the fridge. Well, that's fine. We don't want to waste stuff. But on the other hand, I think our priority should be to vaccinate as many people as possible. And surely, if there is a downturn, certain people haven't come for their vaccines, we should be able to contact other people to get them vaccinated, because the more people who are vaccinated, the more it protects us. I did hear that last week at one of Bradford's mass vaccination centres, they had vaccinations not left over, but there was a shortfall in the take-up. And they emailed various schools and said, come and get, for the teachers to come and get their vaccination. And of course, that was taken up immediately. And Leicester have done the same with their police force. Now, we've got our major police station immediately opposite Elland Road, and I'd have thought that would be the obvious thing to do, to invite them to come and have a vaccination, not just save the vaccination till the next day, but get it rolled out.
Okay,
so do you have any comment on that, Paul?
No, I think, Liz, they are all questions for the public health specialists and staff and those who are responsible for the rollout of the vaccine. I think it changes and it differs from area to area. For example, I asked a very similar question about the rollout and was told, if you remember, at one of our briefings over the last couple of weeks, that there wasn't an issue with the supply of vaccine. And yet I'm picking up anecdotally, not in South Leeds, I have to say, I've not had this, but in other parts of the city, that in fact GP practices are only finding out a week in advance how much vaccine they're going to get. And obviously that then restricts their ability to plan ahead. I think in the call this morning, there was a feel from one of the GPs that made it very difficult for them to plan ahead. So it wasn't so much a shortage of vaccine, it's the fact that they don't know what's coming and when, to allow them to plan so that they can start inviting people from the various cohorts to come for the vaccine. So again, it's the national system of distribution that to some extent is impairing the rollout locally. But I think in terms of the detail, really do need to put those questions to the people who are managing the process on a day-by-day basis.
Well, of course I have done.
Good.
I
Okay.
just wondered if you had advanced information.
No. Good. Kim, you're next, love.
So I think it was a very similar question. Since that letter's gone out in Middleton, we've had contact from people saying, you know, if there's any cancellations, can we go along? I've had some people who've got appointments for cancellations and heard of people who have been called in. And I think, in all fairness, in terms to the surgeries, and obviously just speaking about my brother, when we went through the 119, we were offered at Ellen Road Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday or Tuesday. So there's availability. It's just, I suppose, the administration of all of that. And I know the report is on COVID, but just really wanted to ask if there's any plans, because there's a lot of illnesses and a lot of appointments that have been missed, breast cancer screening, all of those other things that are really relevant and that can, you know, cause early deaths, especially in areas of ours with higher health inequalities. In transport, we've got a 2-year recovery strategy, and I just wondered at a local level, should we be starting to work on a recovery strategy, and you know, should politicians be leading that for areas like South Leeds? I know it's difficult to get resource to even do sub-boards for the work that Councillor Clutterbuck and Councillor Almers are doing, but I think it's really important that we do have a health recovery strategy for all these appointments that have been missed and cancelled, and yeah, just wanted to put that into the mix.
Okay then, so I've got Paul Ray.
Can I just respond to that, Chair?
I would just going to say,
I think that again is a citywide issue, and one of the good things is that, I mean, wearing my hat as a chair, as a member of the Health Scrutiny Board, that we are looking at the recovery plan to address just sort of the issues that Kim has raised, because clearly COVID has afflicted far more people than just the ones it's infected. And there has been a huge backlog built up, not just in the latest lockdown, but in the 3 lockdowns. But that's an issue that obviously the commissioners of the services and the hospitals have to work together on to get those patients back, you know, on into treatment.
Okay, thanks for that, Paul. Paul Ray, you're up next.
Yeah, it's more really a request, a future work for the group to look at in terms of how we speak to our health partners about aligning some of their funding pots to some of our priorities locally, and try and think laterally so that we can build in some actual physical and permanent resilience into our system. So, for example, you know, things around the green prescribing, etc., and how we get our partners to actually look at some of our projects and actually get some of that cross-funding so that we can actually build in some resilience into our systems. Because as much as obviously the pandemic's important at the moment, but thinking forward, we obviously want to take this as an opportunity to kind of change the kind of perspective of how we deal with things. And I'm just very conscious that actually a lot of what the NHS does tends to be quite hard measures. They're quite interventionist when something goes wrong, and where we move the conversation. So if we look at our list of projects and priorities, can we link them somehow to a health outcome, which many of them do have, and therefore trying to cross-pollinate funding to get some of those projects going that otherwise might not get going because we don't have the funding, if that makes sense. So I'd be very interested in the working group looking at that, looking at our projects and then trying to align them to some of the health services projects and financial abilities, and trying to get that kind of cross-pollination of work.
Thank you for that, Paul. Anybody want to answer?
It's an excellent point and something that I think we've all been looking to do for many years. I just have to say, Chair, the resources available to us as health champions are very limited in terms of being able to pursue particular initiatives. In terms of the LCP, which would be the ideal group to pick that up, the LCP is trying to be disciplined and not to let 1,000 flowers bloom, but to concentrate its resources on particular areas, because everybody who's involved, public sector, third sector, have all got other work to do, and there is a massive limit on what can be done. And mental health was seen as the priority for concentration. So that's not in any way to minimise the importance of the point that Paul's made, but it's just coming back to this capacity. We can't chase every single issue that it would be necessary to chase to address the inequalities in the South. And it's a case of being disciplined and focusing on those where we can. But your point is very valid in terms of mental health and combining resources and making sure that the coordination's there. And also that people needing support, either preventative support or more acute support, have one point of entry and they don't get passed from pillar to post, and that they can access these services easily through maybe the joint working and the joint budgeting that you've mentioned, Paul. But that will be specifically in the context of areas like mental health. I don't think we have the capacity to start broadening it out in the way that you've described, unfortunately.
Are you coming back onto that, Paul?
Yeah, I completely accept the point. And I suppose maybe actually it's us on our side actually doing something. So where we look at some of our projects and actually we building the health benefits to the business case argument, so that actually we're doing the legwork for them, so that we then go to them and actually say, you've got this pot of funding there, actually, can we access that, rather than them having to divert away. So maybe it's something we need to look at as a group of councillors and as officers about how we position some of our business cases, because I think particularly on the mental health, we need to look at marginal gains and building resilience into a lot of our projects, so that actually they are more manageable. And I think that's maybe a challenge that we have to look at when we're looking at our projects, to make sure we get the physical and the mental health arguments built into it, so that we can readily go over to our colleagues in the health service and say, can we have a bit of cash, please, to help with this?
And I think the other thing, Chair, just coming back on what Paul said, is that there are a number of strategies unfolding across the city. And I think the importance is that we as local members are consulted, not just through the community committee, but that's one of the obvious vehicles for doing that, but where necessary, individually in our own wards. So I think it's a case of knowing what's happening and how to plug into it.
Good, right, so I've got Judith and then Gohar.
Yeah, just briefly, Chair. I just want to say, in terms of the vaccination debate, I don't think, where we've got some glitches, we should let it take away for the extraordinary effort that everyone has made locally to get through as quickly as can. And I think actually the local practitioners have been incredibly flexible, and where they can move on, they have done. I think that it's inevitable that there have been supply issues, and we've made a real fuss, if you remember, when there was a suggestion that they were moving supply away from us to areas that weren't getting through it as fast. And I think that was really a well-made fuss and had an impact. I think one of the things, and I do know there are a number of cases where they have got to the end of the day and they have reached out and got people to go in and take up the vaccine. I think the sort of rule they're working to is that they don't want to waste a single drop of vaccine, and they're happy to move on through the categories as swiftly as possible. I think the incredible challenge that they're going to have is now they're moving towards the second doses, and they're going to have to double the capacity and the number of vaccines that they're doing if they're going to keep up with the timetable. So I think those are the questions I'd want answering, is just how they're going to make sure that the capacity is there, the supply is there, so that everyone can have their second dose on time. It's one of those strange things. It seems that if you went to one of the mass vaccination centres, you got given a second appointment when you went. But if you go through the GP side, they're not all giving the second appointment, so you have to wait for them to get in touch with you. And I think that's the thing to watch, because the second dose is really important, and it's absolutely critical that we get across to everyone that they need to go for that second dose. But they're still on with the job of giving the first dose to the next stages down.
Okay. Thanks for that, Judith. Go, Hart.
Thank you, Chair. Just coming back to Councillor Nash's initial question with regards to vaccine, some vaccine perhaps being wasted or not being people not being vaccinated, and people, for example, the police station opposite the vaccination centre and all that. That's a really good point. However, I'll just give you my personal perspective, and Councillor Blake has touched it as well. For example, I've booked my appointment. I got the message and I booked my appointment, and the timing that I could find at the Ellen Road Vaccination Centre was only until around 8 o'clock. So at the moment, I've heard they're not running to the full capacity, allegedly up to 24 hours maybe a day or that kind of thing. So at the moment, I think they're touching something like 5,000 people a day, and they have a target to touch, maybe vaccinate up to 10,000. So however, I kind of experienced that personally when I tried to book the second appointment for the second vaccination, for the second dose. I couldn't find any appointment, you say. So that I had to book an appointment at the village, near the village hotel. So that sort of showed that perhaps by May, when it's time for second dose for people, then we'll have more and more people working and more doses being given on the day. So that's just from personal experience. But we certainly need somebody from the public health to give us those facts and figures. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I hope you found that interesting and a good debate, and putting Paul and Gohart under pressure there for things that are not in your remit. But thank you all for attending, talking about that. I think, if I'm not mistaken, we're up to item 50, which is community engagement. Is everybody on the same page as me? When did you want to ask a question, Andrew?
This area, paragraph 57.
Right, we'll catch you up then. Right, Kim, you've got your hand up again.
Yeah, just check quickly if we can sort of maybe have a further update, because we did skip slightly past it, but we've got a 70% increase in the Inner South in universal credit. So I think maybe it's something that we need to with it in terms of employment and skills, because that's a massive increase. I think
well, we get the figures from Jonathan, don't we? Is it once a week or once a month?
Yeah, but I'm not sure if it was a 90% increase across the city, but in the Inner South it's a 70% increase.
Okay, we'll ask for more information from Jonathan to make sure we know where we are. Cheers, thank you, Kim. Right, so any questions on community engagement? So Holbeck residents meeting, we had a small one, and we've had a track meeting, we've had covert meetings, and then Beeston Hill residents, I've had a couple of meetings. Improving park, I'm just going through the headlines because I'm presuming you've read it all. Right, I'm on to Where We Love Grit Bins 57.
Hi, thanks, Chair. Just on Kim's point about employment, I'd welcome that as an agenda item at this committee at some point soon. On this item, I just wondered how councillors from Middleton Park got this through. So we've looked at grip bins, and we've had a lot of pushback around looking at the gradients of various roads, etc., and just wanted some input from them about how and who they talk to. Thank you.
So these are all on secondary routes, Andrew, or even not even on secondary. We put out a call for volunteers from those communities because they have to have a key. We've had 16 people respond, 14 women and 2 men. And from that, they're going to be delivered. And then what we're putting into place, because we have got grip bins across the board, but what we did recognise in terms of this last period of bad weather, that they hadn't been refilled. So we've done a mapping of where they are, and we're putting them on a programme, and we've got to find the rest of them. And myself and Lynn are looking at that, and obviously from memory of where the bins are. And we're going to put some funding aside to refill them in August, so that we're not at that situation where people are just emailing all 3 of us to get that done. So that's how we've done it. But you've got to have that volunteer to hold the key.
Okay.
But to be honest, it wasn't a problem getting volunteers.
Right. Okay, Paul Ray, I can see your hand up.
Yeah, it was just coming because we had a similar experience in Hunsdon Riverside, particularly on the housing Leeds estates, and found out that apparently housing's meant to tell cleaner neighbourhoods about where the bins are, so they can make sure that they're litter picked and that people order this and that. And we've done a similar thing in Hunsdon Riverside, where we've set aside £4,000 for housing Leeds to say where they need grip bins on our housing estates, so that they can manage them. And then we've already noted for Lynn to put aside some money next year so that we can refill them. But it is a case of, apparently there was a communication breakdown that we found out, where housing thought highways was looking after them, cleaner neighbourhoods thought someone else was looking after them, and apparently they've had to have that conversation internally to remind who actually looks after what and when, because they're meant to do an audit in August or October.
Yep.
So I think it's probably maybe for the communities and safety group, when it gets closer to that point, reminding cleaner neighbourhoods and housing that they need to do an audit of them.
Good. Okay. Does that answer your question, Andrew? Good. Okay. So moving on, we've had a core group in Holbeck, which we had on the 22nd of October. I don't think we've got another one planned. Middleton Park have had their nip board, and I can't see that they've got another one planned. No. And Beeston Hill core group, again, you've had meetings, but I can't see another one planned.
There's going to be a meeting on the 22nd of this month to discuss priorities going forward. I don't know if it's been minuted in on the paper yet.
See it.
I think it was only arranged a couple of days ago.
Okay, so I can see that Jane's on the call. So I think we need to start having a Holbeck core group and a Middleton core group, at least put in the diaries.
We do. I'll just update. So I think what we put in the report was that we've been consulting and working with services individually. So the difficulties around core group meetings, but we've been meeting with employment and skills. We've been meeting with regeneration. We've been meeting with cleaner neighbourhoods and all services over the 2 priority neighbourhoods, Holbeck and Beeston Hill. So we have kept work up, and Middleton and Belle Isle Neighbourhood Improvement Board, it has met, and I believe there is a date in for the next one for that. But yeah, the core groups have not been meeting, but I think we're ready to get them back up and running again. But it's not that the work hasn't been taking place, because it has. But yeah, we'll get those set up soon.
Cheers. No, I didn't doubt you weren't doing your job. I just wanted to make sure that we're in the loop to know what you're doing. Good. Good. Then I've got a local community centre programme, and there's a list of all the places that have been contacted. Middleton Town Centre thing, Hunslet Riverside, Dewsbury Road team. And then we go on to Community Hubs update, which I'm sure you're all getting your updates from your own hubs. I know we in Beeston and Holbeck get a regular one from Slunglow. And as Paul said, Hamara have been working in his ward, and you're getting yours. What's your group called, Paul?
The Involved Centre is doing Hunslet Riverside, yeah.
Good, and they're all doing a wonderful job, and I don't know what we'd have done without them. So the last thing I've got on there, I think, is Housing Advisory Panel, and myself, Elizabeth and Paul Trustwell are on there, and that gives us all our projects and the work that we've spent. And I think, she says boldly, unless I'm mistaken, that's the end of the update report, unless anybody's got any questions they need to ask. No, I'm looking at faces.
So,
no, sorry, did you, Elizabeth?
Yeah, it just took me a minute to raise hand and unmute. I think the Housing Advisory Panel are thinking of putting it on Facebook to get a wider audience. But what they should do, and I will raise this, it must be made quite clear that the grants and projects that they do is for predominantly housing estate areas, because it is the tenants that are paying for whatever happens. So we can't have a group which represents a private area coming forward to the Housing Advisory Panel.
That's already been brought up on Facebook, because Katie Bell did put like a virtual invite for anybody wanted to be on it, and people who are private residents were saying, what's it about, can I be on it? And we need to make clear that it is council tenants who pay. So I think we maybe need to look at changing the name to count, to involve tenants associations in the title, because it is misleading when you say Housing Advisory Panel. People are thinking it's for any sort of housing, and it's not. You're right. It's so I was going to bring it up at the next meeting.
Yeah, good idea.
Good. Right. Okay, everybody. Thank you very much. I think the next item we're on to is the transport, and I think that Finn and Paul should be thanked for staying with us through our meeting. So I'll leave it over to you two to take this forward. And how long are you going to take?
Should I ask how long we're allowed, Chair? Is that the best way to?
Well, we've got after you, I think we've got Census person was coming at 3:30. So if we give you 15 minutes for your presentation and then 15 minutes for question and answers, is that enough?
That's fine, Chair. Yeah, thank you.
Good. Okay.
Okay, so Finn's going to share, and I've usefully been looking on my other screen at the Levelling Up Fund, which has just been announced in the budget. So it's an opportunity probably to deliver some of these things we've got in the transport strategy. So Finn will share the. Does he need to be given permission by?
I can give permission now, Finn.
Thanks, Harriet.
Thanks, Harriet.
So the transport strategy, clearly a number of members here have already seen a sort of presentation that we brought to Labour Group. Obviously, it's been to Executive Board in December as well to launch this as a draft strategy, and the consultations underway at the moment. So far, we've had about 2,500 responses from about nearly 1,000 people through the online forms that we've got there, and really part of the engagement that we want to do is make sure that everyone is getting the opportunity to comment, because obviously the more people that we get to comment on this, the more confident we can be that this is the transport strategy that the people of Leeds want us to take forward in the next 10 years. So just moving on, Finn, I think part of that is I just wanted to sort of feed back to you what we got when we did the transport conversation in 2016, and particularly the comments that came from Inner South. And maybe when I'm talking through the rest of this presentation, I can refer back to how it relates to some of these issues that were raised by people, and hopefully we've got some answers and ways we can solve that. So clearly rat running through communities is an issue, and I think that's something that we have in many, especially the inner areas of the city. The impact of that in terms of road safety, in terms of air quality, are things that we do need to address through a transport strategy, reducing those numbers and making the impact much lower. bus routes. I haven't been to an area committee or any sort of public meeting without someone telling me that the bus routes and the bus system that we have at the moment doesn't quite do enough for them. And I'm sure obviously Councillor Groves hears that more than I do even. But so therefore, working with the combined authority, we've got to look at how that can be improved, and this transport strategy sets out some ideas around how we start to make that work. Air quality, I mentioned. There were some comments which I think are welcomed in terms of technology and how we can unlock some of the opportunities that technology gives us to travel in a different way, to access transport differently. So there's some parts of the strategy that start to do that. And then that the point around bus rail or bus and bus integration is also often made. So hopefully there's some things in here that will help deliver that. So the strategy vision is to be a city where you don't need a car. That is about making sure that everyone has an affordable, accessible, healthy, low carbon alternative for every journey that they do. And I do stress that everyone and every journey, and I think that's what this strategy is about. It's providing a real transport system across a variety of ways of traveling, a variety of modes that caters for every journey that we need to do. Okay. It's very much based on the sort of three pillars of strategies that we've got in terms of tackling climate change, delivering inclusive growth, and improving health and well-being. And I'm sure you all agree that, you know, obviously we've developed those strategies over a number of years, and the transport strategy has to respond to them and start to help deliver those other objectives for the city. Okay, Finn. In terms of specifics, we have set ourselves some challenging targets. I think probably the most challenging of those is the commitment to make transport carbon neutral by 2030 as part of the climate emergency declaration. We're looking at how we therefore change the way people travel, looking at targets for the decrease in private car use by 30%, increase in rail and bus by significant 100% amounts, and then increase in walking and cycling to get us to the figures that you can see on the side there, where the balance is very much that the majority of trips are done by those sustainable and active modes. We're also putting in this strategy a commitment to Vision Zero, which is about commitment to make there be zero casualties in terms of killed or seriously on Leeds roads by 2040. And I know we've had a number of discussions at scrutiny, etc., about this, and that requires the local authority in terms of the highway authority. It requires an education program, and it requires enforcement and police and the partnership approach between us all to achieve that. And it is really challenging, but there are examples internationally where that has been achieved. You know, in terms of Oslo is the example that's sort of world leading on that, and it can be done. So you know, all these accidents are preventable, and so we need to look at how we can deliver that over time. Okay, thank you. Next slide. I think the scale of the challenge that I alluded to in terms of the climate emergency is huge, in terms of transport being a third of the emissions in the city. And with sort of the current trajectory that we're on, we could probably get about 17% reduction. If we introduce this strategy and the things that we've outlined here, as we're pretty committed to doing, we'll need support in terms of policy and funding from government to do that, but we could probably get to a 43 to maybe 50% reduction. We've looked at what the effects of sort of COVID and home working, more home working will be on that. Probably gets you to about 50%, but we really do therefore need to consider more measures that are going to make that shift more rapid than it is. So whether that is a greater reduction in the amount we travel, the way we travel, or the vehicles we use to travel, in terms of getting those into low carbon. So that's what we're asking as part of this consultation, is how do we address that gap? We've put forward a number of proposals and options there in terms of workplace parking levy, a low carbon zone, which are sort of charging mechanisms that would allow you know, persuade people to change behaviour, but also bring in an income stream that you could then put into incentivising public transport use, making that cheaper, more affordable for people, or investing in infrastructure to make it run more smoothly. Okay, and then so the transport strategies consists of these 6 big moves that or themes, areas that we've talked about. So I've talked a lot about the decarbonising transport. That is very much about, the council is leading the way on this. We've got the lowest, the highest number of electric vehicles in any council fleet in the country. You know, and we continue to show people and businesses that these options are viable and they can do that and can make that change. We're offering them as trials, etc., to people. So there's some real practical examples of how the council can lead the way and show people what is available and how they can change their behaviours. We're doing creating healthier street space and communities. This is, you know, absolutely important, and that point around rat running through areas in terms of concerns about air quality, concerns about road safety in local areas. This is very much about that. This is about how we can change the street environment, maybe reclaim those residential streets for people rather than for vehicles, and link those very much to investment in district centres as well. Make them real heart of the communities that they serve as well, and make the services and facilities in those the ones that people choose to use rather than travelling a longer distance to access those communities. So there's an element of planning and how we deliver services as well that can help with the transport element of that sort of community improvements. Also looking at sort of extensive cycle networks, etc., to tie into that network of the residential streets in between. There's some work on transforming the city centre, again around understanding the economic importance of Leeds city centre within the city region, the opportunities therefore to connect to that, making it a place where people want to live, work and visit, and making sure that the connections from that city centre to the neighbouring districts are there, whether that be public transport services that are reliable, that aren't full at the point they get there, or the walking and cycling connections, reducing some of those barriers that some of the transport, particularly infrastructure that was built in the motorway city of the 70s, is removed, or we look to reduce the barrier effect that they have. Enhancing public transport, I think there's a number of work streams there, working with the combined authority on the bus partnership approach to get a virtuous circle in terms of public transport. So we as the Highway Authority can invest in things like bus lanes, which speed up the buses, which stop them being congested, and therefore they can run more regularly and more reliably, which should encourage more passengers to use them. When you get more passengers, they get more income, and then how do they reinvest that money that's coming in into greater frequency of service, maybe lower fares potentially, or extended hours of operation into evenings and weekends, etc., or more services to serve different areas. And once we get that, you then get more people on it. And so we've got to try and kickstart that virtuous circle to get continuous improvement in our public transport, which has been, you know, generally Leeds has not suffered as much as other areas, but you know, that general decline has happened over the last 20 or 30 years, and we've got to reverse that if we're going to achieve the outcomes for our strategy. New mobility solutions is very much about the alternatives and how you can use sort of shared travel and technology as options. So things like car clubs, like bike share, building on the services that are already there in terms of taxi and private hire services in the city. How do you combine them all with a single payment or system that can maybe be subsidised as well to allow certain people and to get access to that travel as well. So there's a whole range of measures in there that we want to bring forward in the city that that could transform how we use and pay for travel. And then finally, but no means least, is mass transit, and you may have seen the Combined Authority have released their mass transit vision document, setting out where the places we need to connect with a mass transit system across West Yorkshire. And so Leeds obviously fully behind that strategy, and support the delivery of that. The next stage of that is to do the consultation, ensure that people want us to continue that. That seems to be the message we're getting when we're talking to people. And then how do we then implement that? Where do the routes physically go? And then moving on towards delivery. And it's going to be a relatively, it's not a quick win. And that's why, while some people say this is the most important thing we're doing, it is very important, but we've got to do the whole range of improvements, because the mass transit isn't going to take everyone from everywhere they need to go to everywhere they need to from where they live. So it's a really important project, but only a part of that picture. Okay, so I think we've just put down there again just that point around encouraging people to participate in this through the connections, through the groups you have. We do want to hear as many voices as possible we can. We're looking at how we can go a little bit beyond the online engagement that we've been doing, putting some posts up in local shops, etc., getting some support from localities teams to do that. And the consultation is going to be live till the 26th of March, so that's when we're looking to close the consultation. We're going around all the area committees as you know. And then finally, the last bit is we are doing a series of webinars. Councillor Groves is on the one tomorrow around mass transit. And we've had we have got on that one, for instance, we've got someone from Transport for Greater Manchester talking about how they've developed their tram system over the last 20-30 years, and some lessons from that, and how we can take that forward. And then there's been a whole series of webinars on each of the big moves, and they're available on YouTube if you want to watch them and see that discussion. There's a Q&A, people can ask questions, and then we're sort of filtering those to make sure we cover the wide range of topics that people are asking us. There's never enough time to answer all the questions, but I think they've been really useful in us understanding the types of questions people are asking, and we've been building a Q&A as well on the website alongside that to hopefully answer as many questions as we can from the public.
Okay, is that it, Paul?
It is it. I think what my sort of plea to you is in terms of when you're asking questions on this, if you could also sort of give us your general view on the strategy. Is it going in the right direction? Is there anything we've omitted from it? And then what are the specifics for Inner South that you'd like to see as we move forward into delivery of that strategy?
Okay. If you'd like to unshare the screen, then I can see everybody. Right, I'm looking for raised hands. Anybody? I've got Paul Ray, and then I've got Andrew Scopes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Paul, for that presentation. Broadly supportive of the things in there. I think they are going in the right direction. I suppose some of my concern is around the PR of this, and particularly around some of the what some people would call vanity projects, but are actually quite important economic projects in terms of things like the cycle lanes, etc. What work are we doing to sell the economic importance of that infrastructure to the general public, particularly for those people who find actually owning a car or even using a bus too expensive, in terms of the messaging about actually this opens up economic opportunity to you? And what work are we doing to align maybe projects along that to actually encourage bike ownership take-up? And the second point, again, just on the active travel and the cycle lanes, I'm particularly interested in short journeys, particularly for the delivery sector. And what work are we doing to promote with the last mile sector in terms of actually moving from short car journeys to actually cycle-based journeys to actually maximise the potential of the cycle network we are creating and take a lot of those very short journeys, particularly from our distribution centres in places like Sturton and parts of Hunslet, to actually use bikers rather than short car journeys or light goods vehicles.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want to answer them individually? Because I've also got Paul Trustwell as well. Or do you want to?
No, go on, give us 3 at a time, and I can.
Okay, so Andrew Scopes.
3 at a time. Okay, I'll stick to just 3 questions then, Paul. So in terms of the opinion, so I'm broadly supportive, subject to the detail, and I think things like making sure Holbeck isn't missed on the way in is one of the details which I think is essential. So I think the map I've just brought up in South Leeds Life, which is clearly not the only publication, it's got Beeston, Ellen Road, White Rose. And I think if we had a line that didn't stop in Holbeck, that would be a massive problem from my perspective. And I think that it's really important to make sure some of our more deprived inner city communities have access to these mass plans, and that to me is absolutely essential. I'd written down communication, which is very much what Councillor Ray was talking about, and I think, as you are aware, we've been trying to look at an active travel neighbourhood in Beeston, and I think ultimately one of the things that we've struggled with is selling the vision. And so whilst the concept is great, I love the idea of less cars, more active transport, more of all the stuff you're saying, people being safe to cross the road, that sort of thing. Unless we get people along with us, we're going to have a really painful journey. And we all know that change is hard. We all know that. That's a fact. And so unless we can articulate the end point, where the vision or where we're trying to get to, we're going to get a real challenge. And so I think we need to do a lot more in that space. And I understand from your perspective that it feels like wasted time when you just want to implement, but you really need to work closer with the comms team to make sure we sell the vision, or we get people to buy into the vision, which I think is really important. And then I think that's all waffle really, but important. I think they're really important points. The question I have is, what impact will the new mayor have in terms of the implementation of the mass transit system? But please do write down the stuff, particularly about Holbeck and communications as well.
Okay, do you want to answer those? There's quite a few there. So that, just so your question don't get lost, Paul Trustwell. So you've got Paul Ray and Andrew Scopes, Anna.
Okay, so I think that both of the questions around that sort of economic opportunity and how cycling can be an enabler, a low cost alternative for people. I think we are trying to align that work. That a lot of work going on with the Combined Authorities City Connect team to do that, and through the Emergency Active Travel Fund. There are a series of initiatives that have been looked at in terms of encouraging people to use it, but also giving them the knowledge, the skills, and in some instances the actual bikes to do that. So there's a number of projects. I don't know all the details of those, but there's been quite a slug of the funding being allocated to doing that work. So if you've missed it, I'll at the next sort of team meeting that we have on that, or project board on that, I'll try and see if we can sort of prompt a little bit more of that engagement with members and filter that out to the groups that can probably reach the people that need to access those opportunities. The delivery and e-bikes bit, again, we have actually, as part of maybe not that program but another program, we have bought some e-bikes and we're lending them out to different businesses to try and get them to test them. So again, that here you go, try it, it does work, and trying to really get more and more people to do it. And it'll be one of those things, won't it? The more that start to do it, that see the economic and benefits of doing it, it will build. You've seen other cities across the UK and the world where that has started to really build up in terms of a useful and efficient way for logistics to work. And so it's got to, they're businesses, aren't they? They're going to do it for their reasons, and they've most businesses have got like that social conscience, and they want to do things in a greener way, but also they are looking at how they deliver their business and the bottom line, and that distribution through e-bikes does work. So maybe that's I'll talk to the team who are doing that about whether they can maybe target some of those distribution centres, because it does seem as you say, an ideal opportunity, doesn't it? On to Councillor Scope's questions. I think the detail around the mass, I presume it's the mass transit map that you were talking about, Councillor Scopes. I think that has been developed, but it's not a comprehensive list of the stops. I think it was trying to demonstrate the places that you might connect with it. There will be, as you design up a scheme, intermediate stops along the way, and so there was a balance between how many names I think that were put on the list and how and versus to make it clear versus you know, being able to display it all on one page. So take the point, and I'm sure, and I know from the work that we're doing, that whole, you know, routes into and close to the city centre are very important. I think the point around selling the vision and how we get active travel neighbourhoods, etc., to work is really important, and I think we've learned that in the last year with the schemes that we've implemented. We sort of took the government's funding, and because it was emergency, do it without really much consultation. We did a little bit beforehand, but not really the level of engagement we were comfortable with and would like to do. And we're going to do it better next time. We're going to make sure that we do have that. And I think one of the things that will really help with that is having some voices and identifying those voices within the community who can sell this. So it's not just the council doing it, it's those people helping and selling the vision amongst themselves as well. And I think that must be a really important way for us to get that communication. So I think identifying champions is one of the things we really want to do through this through the next phase of implementation of those schemes. I wonder if Councillor Groves wants to answer the mass transit and mayor question, or should I have a go at it?
So obviously the mayor will have, you know, will be obviously leading on all aspects down at Wyker. I suppose in terms of the mass transit system, it's not a decision for the mayor. It's basically the studies that have been done on the corridors that need to connect right across West Yorkshire have to have a business case ready by 2022, and all the feasibility studies have to be done in terms of engineering, cost. So I think it will decide itself on which route goes forward and the volume of people that we can move on those corridors. So there's several corridors in Leeds. There's a Leeds to Bradford, there's a Leeds to Wakefield, and the information that's got to go into government for the 4.2 billion in 2022 is how many people you can move on those corridors. But more importantly, if it's going to be a revenue driver for West Yorkshire, as Paul said, to reinvest. So if actually that's going to be the mode of transport that helps us put all the buses to the places that we need to get to. So all that will be decided in the business case. And that is already that work is already started. So it's been ongoing for like 2 years. So.
Okay, thanks for that, Kim. So the last question goes over to Paul Trustwell.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. And I want to follow on from what Paul and Andrew were saying about the way we deal with this, because, I mean, my own view is that this is a great strategy. You know, it rings all the bells, blows all the whistles, does all the singing, all the dancing. But if it simply raises expectations that we don't then deliver on, then it's a bit of a fool's errand. And my own view is that we can talk about mass transit, which is important for the future. We can talk about rail, but ultimately it's the bus that delivers today and in the near future for the people of South Leeds in terms of giving them not just an alternative to the car, but their only alternative when they don't own cars. And we know how low car ownership is in our area. So I'm wanting to know how we ensure that we're making an offer to people that is really going to make this not just a vision, but something that they'll think, yeah, I'll buy into that if it's going to improve my local bus service. Because I think the deregulation of bus services in 1986 was one of the most criminal antisocial privatisation act ever visited on communities like South Leeds. You know, you used to be able to carry the timetable round in your head of the 1 or the 4, or when I lived in Edinley, the 74 or the 56. Since privatisation, since deregulation, services have chopped and changed. They're missing or they're late. Services are run how the operators want to run them, where they run them, you know, and holding them to account is really difficult. Now, I know that the mayor will have potentially the power of franchising. That only goes halfway towards what we had before, when local authorities actually ran the service. They not only commissioned them. So what is the offer that we can give to people that this is going to affect, you know, that element of transport, which really is crucial to their lives? And very last question, I'm really glad to see the 0 deaths on the road, because killed and seriously injured figures in West Yorkshire and in Leeds continue to plateau, when in fact they were coming down to up to about 2010. And I can't help thinking that one of the reasons for that is that we as a council can do the engineering, we can do the traffic calming, but at the end of the day, there's a hardcore of motorists who are irresponsible and reckless, and it's only the police who can take enforcement action against them. And of course, we know that their resources have been severely reduced. So that's another area where I fear we're going to inflate expectations that we're not going to be able to deliver.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Kim, have you your hand up again? And if it is, can I ask you to keep it short, because it's nearly 10 to 4 and we've got days and we've got the census, and I usually like to finish for 4 because I think 2 hours is enough.
You just want Councillor Blake to go because I've already spoken.
Okay, Judith.
Yeah, sorry, Chair, and I've got to be on another call bang on 4, so sorry if I have to abruptly leave. I don't want to go into a history lesson, but when I was chair of scrutiny back in 2002, I remember I couldn't understand how we could have a target for less than 0 in terms of deaths on the road, and oh my God, was it the most difficult thing to get across? How could you possibly have a target that was higher, you know, that's allowed for deaths? It's a bit like building sites in Qatar, you know, which have contracts which include fatalities, which is shocking. So really pleased to see that being taken forward. Can we just be slightly careful when we're talking about the change to the mayor coming in, because the mayor actually is only 1 vote round the table, and the leaders of the councils will have an equal say, and we mustn't give the impression that it will be the mayor that's dictating policy in this area. It's absolutely critical that we still recognise that the 5 local authorities will still have the equal weight in terms of making decisions of taking things forward. That's an established principle through all of the mayoral models, and one that West Yorkshire is replicating. So our own individual voices Leeds will still be very important, and all councillors need to make sure that they let their voice be heard. And I'm sure Kim will be very pleased to hear that that's the case. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith.
Incredible the work that's been done to get this far. Some of it obviously will be aspirational, but we've got to aim as we mean to, you know, carry on as we mean to go forward to get the systems in place that we need.
Okay, Paul, very quick answer, because I'm going to cut you off in 2 seconds.
Okay, thank you. I guess there's 2 points there that I really agree, you know, obviously agree with. Thanks for the points by Councillor Blake. I think that point about bus deregulation, I think we can all agree with that. But I think if I'm allowed a minute or 2 just to give an example of how we have, even in the deregulated environment, work to get some successes. So by investing the money that we have as the council on bus lanes and infrastructure, for instance, the Huntler Road scheme that's going in at the moment, that works on site, that's going to provide bus priority for a number of the services in especially to Middleton, and then those further out towards Sturton and beyond. But that is because of that infrastructure investment, we've been able to work with the bus operators for them to invest in something as well as part of that informal partnership that we've had. Now, in this instance, we thought our priority as a city was to look at the air quality in the city, and so they brought in the latest, low emission vehicles and new vehicles with the new technology, etc., on them as part of that service. So they're an improvement that we've got from that. Now, maybe what the next round of infrastructure investment that we do, whatever that might be through, whether it's through that infrastructure fund, whether it's through the Transforming Cities Fund, or whatever we get from central government in terms of capital investment, then what are the bus operators likely to bring to that through their partnership? And is that a reduction in fares maybe, or is it additional services, etc.? And that's what the combined authority are working on delivering through the partnership, is to get some of those key commitments from the operators contractually as we invest as well. So I understand it's maybe not the same level of control and model that there was in the past, but working within the context that we've got, we can do some things. We don't need to give up on it completely with what we've got. We have got some leverage and opportunity as the highway authority, with the combined authority to leverage investment from the private firms as well. And at the moment, we're funding them because they haven't got the patronage, and all the money's coming from government to keep them running. So it's almost that model already.
Okay. Kim, did you have a final word to say?
I think in terms of what Councillor Trustwell was saying of the bus is absolutely right. That, in terms of the mass transit, it'll take 5 years to build. People in West Yorkshire need an economic recovery. They can't wait 5 years. If the government settlement isn't enough, that they're going to announce with the National Bus Strategy, we've got to be straight back lobbying, and we will have more control of the buses by default, because we are actually putting all the funding in. The fare box has dropped through the floor, but actually the economic recovery is going to take time to get those passengers back. I think Leeds have done an amazing job in terms of the park and rides and all the work that they're doing. And had it not, had it not been going through COVID, the patronage would have soared in Leeds because of the work that they've put in. It were already 55% up on some corridors. But actually it's the model that counts that we get going forward, and what ownership we've got on that. Get the fares right, get the reliability right, and people will come.
Good, thank you for that. Can I thank Paul and Finn for their presentations? And if anybody wants to email them separately and give them the thoughts on this plan, please do so. So yeah, thank you for that. I'm just going to change the agenda around. Scott, I hope you'll bear with me, but I want to say a thank you to Judith Blake, because I know she said she's got a meeting at 4 o'clock, and I don't want you to disappear without me as a community committee chair thanking you for all your help and support over the last, how many years we've been doing this. So thank you, Baroness Blake, for all your hard work and commitment. I'm sure you'll miss us, especially at meetings like this, the hole in the head, but good luck with your future, and you will be missed by us.
Oh, thank you so much, Angela, and everybody. And I can't quite, I just saw the date of the next meeting, and I suddenly realised that it will be my last meetings. I am going to miss you all, and we should write a history of some of the moments we've had, because we have had some quite hair-raising moments over the years, as well as some making some really great achievements. And thank you, Chair, because you've been, how long? I don't know how long you've been Chair, but you've managed to hold us all together. So thank you for that, and I wish you all every success going forward, and I'm sure you'll keep me in the loop.
Oh, yes.
See what's happening, but thank you, everybody.
So can I have one last round of applause for Judith? Yay! Thank you. And
thank you.
So that gives you time to go to your 4 o'clock meeting. So the next item agenda is dates and times of next meetings. Harriet?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so this report sets out the draft schedule of committee meetings for next municipal year for members' consideration. The dates and times of each of the 4 meetings are set out on page 82 of the agenda pack. Over to you, Chair. Thank you.
Right, the dates I've got is the 9th of, we're sticking to Wednesdays because that does seem to suit everybody. We've got the 9th of June, the 1st of September, the 21st of November and the 2nd of March. And we're keeping them all to 2 o'clock at the moment because we think for quite a long time there will be virtual like this. But once we start, times get back to a bit more normal, we can review them. But the times, the dates are the ones that are definite in the diary. Is that okay with everybody? Cheers, thank you. So the last item on the agenda is Scott Anthony, which was a very last minute addition, but we have the census this year, as you all know, on the 21st of March. And I just wanted Scott to come along and get you all enthused about getting all the community. So over to you, Scott.
Thank you. I can't promise about the enthusiasm, but I'll provide my enthusiasm nonetheless. Hello, everybody. I've met some of you before. I'm not going to sort of labour the point about what the census is and who it helps too much, because I imagine that most of you by now have heard of it in some way, shape or form. Rather, I'm going to focus on how you can support us over the next 2 and a bit weeks. So I'll share my screen and then I'll present and hopefully you'll be able to follow along. So there are 3 of us in Leeds who share Leeds as managers, and we are effectively trying to make sure that as many people complete the census as possible. So there's myself, I work in South Leeds, and my colleagues Denise, who works in North East, and Elaine, who works in North West. And it's our job to make sure that communities are represented in the census, especially those who historically have been less well represented. So for example, this morning, I was doing an event for refugees across West Yorkshire. So the census, really, really briefly, is a survey that takes place every 10 years and everybody takes part. It's run by the ONS, which is who I work for, the Office for National Statistics. And that means we're independent of government and we report directly to Parliament and have no political affiliation of any kind. And the census is really important because it gives us a snapshot in good detail about our society. The next census is on Sunday, the 21st of March. You probably all by now will have received your little postcards in the mail over the last week or so. There might have been in between Domino's, pizza vouchers and all sorts, but nonetheless, hopefully you've all received them by now. And you will shortly, starting yesterday, be beginning to receive your invitation letter to take part in the census. So the reason why I say invitation letter is because this time round it's a digital first census. That means that we're hoping that the majority of people will complete their census online. It's a really straightforward process. You get a 16-digit unique access code that's unique to your household. You put that into the census website, census.gov.uk, and then you complete your census. You can still request a paper copy just like you did before. And some people who've been identified as having very low digital need and access to technology will receive that paper form in the first instance regardless. So the majority of people, for example, that you might work with who you think might struggle to complete it online for whatever reason, there's a significant chance they'll receive the paper copy regardless and not get the invitation to complete online at all. Our job's been to focus on engaging with everybody, in particular what we're calling hard to reach groups across the city, and this is where councillors come in particular. There's loads of help available for people to complete both online and on paper, and I'm going to talk a bit more about that because that's probably the first and easiest way that you can support the census is signposting people who might come to you in the first instance to ask what sort of help is available. We work with a bunch of different people, public bodies, third parties. We have a school program. So if any schools in your areas are looking for activities which are suitable to be done remotely, we have school resources both for primary school and secondary school that are all to do with numbers and stats and just introducing people into what the purpose of counting things and grouping things and categorizing things are. We work with local businesses, charities, community leaders, faith groups, and indeed with the communities themselves. And so that's another way that councillors can help, is by sharing some contacts that you might already have. I know some of you have done that with me already, so thank you for that. A reminder that it's a legal requirement to complete the census. Everybody must do it. Since 1920, that has been the case, and you can receive a fine of around £1,000 for not taking part. It does depend on the severity. If you just put things, if you refuse to do it outright, then £1,000 is the maximum fine. Whereas if you completed it partially and then refused, etc., there's small amounts of fine that goes into that. And you must complete the census if you've been in the UK for 3 months, or you plan to be here for 3 months after the census, because the census primarily is designed to try to be able to make sure that we've got adequate amenities and facilities for people. There are lots of barriers as to why people might not want to take part in the census. So I'm just going to very briefly talk about those. They might have fear of authority or data security. In South Leeds, I understand that's quite a significant issue based on social media. Disabilities and lack of access to technology is significant, so we've got different methods in place to try to overcome those. Language issues, both in terms of levels of English and literacy, will vary. People might not simply want to be seen or found by who they deem to be authority figures, and they might not be aware of what the census is or what it's for. It's on the Year 7 curriculum, but it might not have always been the case for people who perhaps have left school a long time ago. People might simply just not feel included. They might feel that social exclusion, particularly with the coronavirus pandemic having exacerbated that. And myths and misinformation are prevalent, as we know with everything, COVID vaccine being the big one at the moment. The census is no different in regard to the fact that it's got lots of misinformation out there. So let's talk about how we can solve some of those things, because these are questions that you might have constituents come to you and ask. The first thing is that your personal information is not publicized. For 100 years, your information will be kept secret. The reason why it's 100 years is because, generally speaking, at the minimum age of 118, you probably won't be in a position to mind somebody seeing your information. It's used after 100 years for genealogy, for family history research. So that's why it's important that eventually it does become public knowledge so that people can trace their ancestry and their lineage. This might obviously help with things like health as well. So what we do is, once you've completed your census, your name is removed by an algorithm. No human needs to see that to do that. And then your data is processed in a big group, in a batch, at LSOA level. So obviously councillors will frequently be exposed to using LSOA level data. So that means you're going to be grouping things in roughly postcode type scenarios so that no individual's data is ever seen, but rather information is grouped together. The census is run by the ONS, who is independent, which means that we cannot, legally speaking, pass your information to any other body except for in that grouped data set like I mentioned already. Nobody, including the government, the Home Office, the police, etc., can access your individual data. One, because it would be illegal for us to provide that. Two, because you haven't given your permission for us to do that, even if it was possible. And three, because your name is removed from it. Not even anybody at the ONS can reattach your name before that 100-year process is complete in order to be able to provide that data. So it's not possible, as well as being illegal. Your name is completely removed, stored separately, like I said, for 100 years. And this is what sort of data we're looking at when it's produced. It produces maps like this, which can be color-coded and made choropleth mapped with. And what this does is it stops individuals or households from being identified and is instead used to form patterns in larger data sets. So this is what, for example, Leeds City Council has been using with the Leeds Observatory, and you might have used some of that data yourself. No organisation can access individual level data, and it is anonymized. Everything's kept safe for 100 years. I know I've said this several times, but this is the most common question that people come back to, which is why I put it in my presentation a few times over. And of course, everything is processed and stored in accordance with the law and with GDPR legislation in mind. So in terms of what people receive, you will hopefully have received already this postcard that I mentioned at the start, this little purple thing that tells you what Census Day is, the 21st of March. It gives you the census website as well, and it just tells you it's more of a heads up. It's trying to tell you that the census is on its way, so please don't recycle it or bin it when it arrives. This is what it looks like when it does arrive. Like I say, these started getting sent out yesterday, so you should start to receive these in the post this week or perhaps into the early part of next week, depending what your post is like. And in the middle there of that screenshot, you can see a 16-digit number in pink, and that's your unique access code. Only you can log on with that information, so don't share that with anybody else unless it's somebody you're trusting to fill out the census on your behalf. In addition, you will receive this initial contact pack. This just gives you some background information as to what the census is, why you've got to do it, and why it's useful. It's very basic, very simple, but it encourages people to look into things for themselves on the census website should they require further information. And that's again something else that you could do as councillors. If people come to you with a question that you don't know the answer to, you can either pass them my details or Denise's or Elaine's, or indeed just forward them the address to the website. If people don't complete their census by the 22nd, so the day after Census Day, then they will start to receive these through the post. These are just friendly reminders to sort of say, you haven't completed your census. We're aware that that unique access code has not been submitted. Can you please make sure that you do it? You might also get a visit from field officers who are operating in COVID secure ways, and their job is to make sure people are happy enough to complete it and don't need any extra support. because there's a good chance that some people, for example, might need any additional help that potentially they're unaware of how to obtain, and their job is to signpost them in the direction of that additional help. So let's look in specific at what you can do to support the census. The census only works if people want to get involved. So the first thing I would say is pass on any useful contact details that you have that you think might like to be involved. So that's third parties primarily. So for example, we work with the Old People's Forum. Just this afternoon, we had a meeting with them to try to disseminate information there. The Refugee Council, loads of different groups across Leeds from all different backgrounds have come to us in the first instance, but as well as us chasing them to become involved in the census operation. We have hard copy materials that they might want to distribute. They're all free of charge, of course, as is everything to do with the census. We're also asking people to speak to people in their community about what it is that they've learned. So if you did like any more information because you think, actually, I could probably have done with finding out more about what the census is used for, that's fine. Drop me an email and I can give you a presentation about that. I can send you it so you don't need to listen to me talk to you the whole time. You can go through it at your own pace. But social media is a really good opportunity to do this. Bit of a shout out to Paul Ray, who's been doing quite a lot of work on social media, sharing some of our messages. So thank you for that. If that's something that you think you'd be interested in doing, I've just put the 3 4 rather different social media tags there. Myself, Census S Leeds on Twitter, and Denise and Elaine's details on Twitter are there as well. The national campaign is on more than just Twitter, you'll be pleased to know. It's across pretty much every social media campaign platform you can think of. We locally don't have access to anything but Twitter, but we are using third parties such as yourselves to share messages on other platforms, especially Facebook, of course, being the biggest one that we have in Leeds. Make sure that you're willing and happy to talk through any fears that people have got. And if you aren't sure, like I say, pass on my details and I will happily speak to those people for you. I have written articles for things like South Leeds Life already, and we're going to be on a bunch of different radio stations, and we've been on a couple already, and not just in English, in various different languages with the help of translators too. So hopefully a lot of people will be well informed, but there's always a chance that some people might slip through the net and therefore require additional help. There's also the opportunity to host what we're calling a virtual completion event. Now, initially, what we'd hope to do is have 11 different locations across Leeds where you could go in person if you lacked access to digital technology. I'll rephrase that. COVID obviously has changed things significantly, and unfortunately, obviously now it looks like we won't be able to open those as we'd planned, at least until the 12th of April. We are currently petitioning to try to find a COVID safe way to open those, whether it's by appointment or whether they have local phone banks, for example. But at the moment, we've been told that these will not be opening as we expected them to. They were supposed to open on the 1st of March so that people could complete the census in person using the technology available at those locations. So in lieu of that, what we're offering is a virtual completion event. Now, I appreciate this is only useful for those people who've got access to technology to begin with, so it is limited to a degree. However, they have proven very popular. My timetable to start with has filled up very quickly since I've been advertising these. You can request a member of staff. It might not necessarily be myself. It might be a colleague who can attend the virtual completion event, or indeed we're making a video series so that you can run the virtual completion events yourselves with anybody that you see fit to help. So we do very much encourage you to look into that if that's something that you're interested in. All that is talking them through the questions one by one as they complete the census sort of live, if you will, without sharing any personal information, of course, across the internet. And obviously make sure you complete your own census form on the 21st of March 2021. So we're just under 3 weeks away from Census Day. It's particularly important if you're going to be talking about the census to make sure that you don't forget to do your own, of course. Thank you very much for your time. It was very much a whistle stop. I appreciate. I was sort of pushed for time. If you do have any further questions that you don't want to go through now, or if we don't have time for, my email address is on the screen. Please make a note or take a photo of it, and then you can drop me a line down the line. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for that, Scott. I do know it was a whistle stop. I don't think you have time to draw breath.
I know, sorry.
Sorry, no, it's not your fault, love. Because originally we didn't have transport in this meeting. So okay. I thought we were going to have quite a light meeting, but then it started beefing up last week. So thank you for that. Has anybody got any questions for Scott? You've got all his details if you want to tell him. If you've got any groups that you think might not be getting access to this, then please get in contact with him, and I'm sure he'll be only too pleased to find them. So anybody got any questions? I've got Liz with a hand up.
Yes, I was just jotting down the email address and it went off the screen. So it's Scott.Martin
64 at field.census.
64 at field.
Yeah.
.centers.
Census.
Oh,
If you put it in the chat thing before we go.
Sure. Yeah,
That's
it's probably easier. Yeah.
And
that's at the end. At field.census. That's
yeah,
it.
and then .gov.uk.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's just going to put it in the chat line list so people can see it as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
It's probably easier, isn't it? If they can copy and paste it then. There you go.
There you go. Scott.Martin 64 at field.census.gov.uk.
Thank you very much.
Good. Oh, cool. Has anybody else got any questions? No? So thank you all very much for coming today. Good luck, everybody, with the elections in May, and I will see you like this virtually, I would think, on the 9th of June. Good luck, everybody. See you later. Bye.